Hello and welcome. I'm James Rice, and today I'm joined by Ronny Bull. Ronny Bull is an assistant professor at computer science at Utica College. He's also an independent consultant in the high-performance computing industry, as well as a co-founder of the CNY Hackathon. Ronny, I'm happy to have you with me today. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, James.
So today I wanted to have a quick little discussion with you about some of your experiences and what it was like to build a cybersecurity club kind of from the ground up, and then as they transitioned into kind of the competition environment and the professional environment, what were some of the ideas you sort of had going through your head as you're doing all this?
Well, at that time, we were looking to start preparing students for the CCDC competition. We were looking at ways to actually get them more involved and getting them more experience and hands-on experience so that they could be better prepared for that type of competition. So really, the CNY Hackathon event evolved from that, where our club was just putting together their time and trying to do different activities as a club to just get themselves prepared for that event. And to give them more of a challenge, we decided to set up this event and try to get industry professionals in that were basically experts in the field in pen testing and other security-related aspects to challenge the students in a real-world scenario level. So it really gave them that hands-on experience to help them move forward in preparing themselves for CCDC. And most of the teams that have gone through this have done very well in those events.
So you have had students then that have actually taken this as sort of a preparatory exercise and gone on to CCDC, is that correct?
At least 3 runs of students have done this, yes. 3 different teams have gone to CCDC.
And how, I guess, if you were to evaluate the performance of using these regional hacking type competitions as a preparatory event, have you found them beneficial? What specifically have you found beneficial? Could you elaborate on that a bit?
We feel it definitely helps the students be more prepared for what they're going to be getting themselves into when they get in that room. They have to actually defend their systems. They're more prepared at getting the systems online quicker and dealing with threats that may happen at any given time or moment. Mm-hmm. So it really helps them mentally prepare as well as get their skills honed for those types of events. As well as build teamwork skills, right? Because you're putting them in a room with a bunch of other students they may or may not know, and they all of a sudden have to get together and work cohesively as a single team.
Yeah, and for someone who might not know CCDC, is that the type of thing where people go as individuals? Do you apply for a team? Can you kind of walk us through the process there of what might?
It's the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, and they have regional events, and we have a Northeastern competition. 10 teams have to qualify for us. There's a qualifying event as well. So what you do is your school goes up and they say they're interested in qualifying, trying to qualify. They go through the qualifier, and then if they're one of the top 10s, they actually go on to the regional competition that's physically held at one of the schools. So they actually have a professional red team there that's actually pounding the student systems as they're working through it. With different challenges, they have to keep their systems online as if they're in a real-world corporate setting. They have to answer to higher-ups and CEOs and CTOs and things like that. So it's really giving them a real-world perspective of what's going to happen when they get out there in the field, and they have to defend systems and keep them online, keep services online, keep customers happy. So yeah, this event sort of mirrors that. We actually go beyond that by throwing in CTF events and different other challenges. It's evolved quite a bit since the initial inception, obviously. But it really started, that's where its roots came from. It was a couple cyber clubs just trying to get together to prepare a few teams for this type of an event.
Yeah, that's really interesting how you were, it sounds like, able to pull together a lot of the core elements of, you've got the technical knowledge the students need to know, you've got the teamwork type aspect as well. You're going to take a whole bunch of people, throw them in a room together, and hopefully they get along.
Yep.
And then also have the professional industry people come in to provide inputs on that. That's a lot of moving pieces.
And we've seen some teams just fail because of the fact they couldn't pull themselves together as a team. There was something there that just wasn't making that team jive together, where the other team that may have succeeded, I'm talking in our regional hackathon, even in the CCDC event, you see this too, where teams tend to fall apart, or maybe some portion of the team headbutt a little bit, and they don't be as effective as another team would be if they were working together better. Mm-hmm. So really, they got to try to develop that. And when you throw them together in a room and say, "Hey, go," it's pressure.
Not going to work. I guess now that some of this has been developed a little bit, I guess I'd like to ask kind of on those elements of preparing a student technically, preparing a student from a teamwork and social type environment point of view, and then maybe working with outside professionals and organizations. What do you find yourself spending time on now in order to kind of improve the event, or where are the weak points? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, a lot of my time is spent basically working on the infrastructure, the networking portion of things, the virtual network infrastructure. trying to make that as more realistic as possible. So we can develop different scenarios on there that can capture the essence of an enterprise network, if you will. So the students really get that real world experience. Bringing in professionals from industry, even not only for them just to be red team, but they also come and help us black team, so helping us with the network as well, and just keeping the event running. We also have people design and capture the flag events for us, which really helps out as well, because this event keeps growing larger and larger, and we're seeing 100 students each event now coming to it. We started with about 30, so we need to have more challenges. We need to keep all these students busy and active and doing something for 2 days. It's not like you can just have them sitting around or have 10 students on a team working on one little problem. We have to have a plethora of different things for them to do. Some people are good at one thing, some are good at others, so you want to make sure that everybody has something that they're interested in or can try. Even from the intermediates, the experts to the beginners, we want to make sure that everybody's fulfilled with some sort of challenge. So by reaching out to industry and bringing in professionals, we get different perspectives outside of what we just have been doing in our own little, circles, that kind of a thing. So this really helps out a lot. So even going to conferences, and seeing what's out there in conferences, participating in CTFs that are at these conferences, DEF CON, DerbyCon, B-Sides, they all have CTF events. You can go to these things and get ideas to bring back for your conference, for your competitions that you're hosting. So this has all been really good stuff that I've been spending a lot of my time on. Every summer I go to the conferences. I'm working with professionals over to the Air Force Research Labs and different industry professionals in our local area, see what they're looking for out of people when they hire them, seeing what kind of things they would, just getting their feedback and then inviting them to the event so they can walk around and see it, and then they start saying, yeah, I want to be a part of this. And what can we do to help? I mean, you yourself, James, came into the event that way, right? Volunteering. So it's just a great thing, and now look what we're doing. We're all working together to make this thing bigger. So it's awesome. So yeah, industry professionals coming in, it just helps the event grow.
Yeah, I definitely see how that go out into the industry, grab the professionals, whether it be over in a candid conversation or walk up to them at a booth and try to get those ideas and try to get them involved to pull them back. Because I can certainly understand how if from an organization point of view, if you throw the same event at the students every single time, it's not like it's just a one semester event. It's really an event over time, over their academic career. And just by throwing the same stuff, they're going to get bored. They're going to drop off. It's not going to work, and it really needs to be dynamic. So that's interesting how much time is actually spent doing that.
So you bring up an interesting point there. You may not have realized it, but you said over time, right? So we just went to our 5th year with this event. So now we're starting to see students going from being maybe a first-year student 4 years ago to being a senior now, where they have a lot more experience, and then they cycle out, and now we're starting to see a cycle of students. So at some points we get, students that are really well prepared, and we have a lot of them. And other events we see that we just have a lot of green students that just are really coming in as freshmen or sophomore, and they really don't know what's going on. So we really have to gauge the students as they're coming in, look at the levels. So when we send out registration, we ask them for their levels. How many hackathons have you attended? And that's something we've had to refine over the years too, where when we were asking these students during registration, at first we asked, well, what do you rate your experience level at? And people rate themselves differently, but they may not all be at the level where we're rating the criteria. So what we decided to do is filter down to how many hackathons have you been at? Because now we know how more prepared you are for the event, and you've been to them, you've experienced it. Your skill level may not be up to par, but you've been on a team. You understand what's going on. You understand the dynamic of what's there. So now we can rate people on that, and then we can basically balance out our teams accordingly and try to focus the team so that we have, a balanced mix of students on each team. That some experts, some have been there a lot, some haven't been there much, and then hopefully it jives.
Yeah, I find that is a really interesting metric. How most of the time I'd say academics would look at things to say, well, maybe what year are you? How many credits do you have? Maybe what's your GPA? How often are you doing things above and beyond? But to actually go and count, well, how many times have you attended one of these events? Kind of based on some of the things we've talked about, just knowing that if you haven't been to one of these events, a lot of your schoolwork and grades might not necessarily count for the advantage of going through this experience even just once.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I kind of wanted to pick your brain a little bit too, based on your title, how I introduced you there. Now you are a professor of computer science, which I know it's closely related to cyber, but still maybe a little bit different based on what the focus might be at one college as opposed to another. So I kind of wanted to ask you what it's like to have students that you're working with that aren't necessarily strictly security focused, and to try to pull those students into a security focused event or competition What is that like? Are there pros? Are there cons? Is it easier? Is it harder? And maybe just talk about some of the skill sets that are involved in doing this.
All right, well, I am a computer scientist and I have my PhD in computer science, but my focus was in security of virtualized environments. So I see computer security as a subset of computer science.
Okay.
So when we're looking at that, if you're a computer scientist, you're really learning computers at a very low level or high level, however you want to put it, right? You're learning it down to the machine level. You're learning coding. You're learning software engineering skills. You're also learning networking skills. You're learning services. You're learning different types of operating systems, how they all work together. You're really learning how those systems all work. And to have that understanding and go into an event like this, you actually have a better chance, I think, of succeeding because you have those troubleshooting skills. You have that overarching knowledge of how everything works together. And you have coding skills. And a lot of the challenges that we see in this event, and especially if we're starting to see these evolve more and more, we're starting to integrate more stuff for computer science students to do, where there's coding challenges, there's looking at and breaking down assembly language, there's looking for different pieces of elements and different streams of TCP that's going over Wireshark, things like that, maybe a cyber student might miss, but somebody who really has an in-depth understanding of the OSI model and what's going on in the different headers of the TCP layer or the IP layer can really pick that stuff out. So I think there is where you're seeing these CS students actually shining in this event, rather than actually being hindered.
Okay.
So there's a difference there, yes. I mean, there's different mentality, right? A lot of the cyber students have more of a, how can I break into this thing? How can I work my way into this or work my way to there? Where I think if they have a CS student sitting next to them, they may actually have a better chance of getting into that system because maybe the cyber student has the knowledge or the mindset, but the CS student may have more of the technical chops and the knowledge to actually get through into the system because they understand the service.
Okay. And would you recommend maybe similar industries? I'm thinking of where a lot of this stuff might actually be applied. So something like an electrical engineering background. A lot of times we see cybersecurity students go more towards criminal justice. Would you recommend organizations, or maybe what would you recommend to organizations that are running majors like that are not so closely knit as maybe cyber and computer science might be, a subset, as you said? What would you recommend to organizations that or professors like that might be interested in getting involved in a security applied event?
Well, we've seen math students coming in before. We've seen other students from different disciplines coming into the event too, and they've done well. It takes them, again, this is why we gauge at how many hackathons have you been to versus your skill level, because some of these students come in, they don't realize what they're getting into. Maybe a friend dragged them in or something and said, hey, you got to try this thing out. Even though you're not in the right major, you're kind of close. So just having them come to club meetings and interacting with the students if they're interested in it. Maybe they're doing a minor in your field as well, just offsetting what they're doing for their major. Just the level of interest just brings them in. And then once they see the event, having all the students having fun, maybe it kind of draws them in a little more. Maybe they try a little puzzle, and they actually they solve it. I remember one year, it was like 3 years back, we had a math student. We were hosting this at SUNY, and we had a lockpicking challenge, right? You remember this event with the lockpicks? Mm-hmm. And she was the one that solved every single pick, all the way to the hardest one. And she was ecstatic about it, right? And she was a math student. That was her kind of contribution to her team. And they were able to solve and do very well that because of what she had accomplished for their team. So there are different challenges that can be posed for those type of students to allow that level of interaction. I mean, social engineering stuff can be played into the game as well. So there's lots of different factors. If you're a faculty member trying to host events like this, think about the student dynamic and maybe try to get other faculty members from those disciplines involved so that you can come up with different challenges that would bring about those different properties.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me, as you're talking about the math major, obviously the big topic that's going to jump out at me is crypto. To say, yes. Do we have crypto challenges that are really more, do you know how to use some software or some technique, or is the crypto knowledge really a fundamental math knowledge that you need to apply? And I could certainly see how, based on which professional you're talking to design the event or to design the challenge, the skill set could really go either way. And if you don't have kind of those interactions on your team, the odds of just one person getting it is going to be a lot less than if you kind of had this kind of the broad the spectrum of people to whom might have that skill set. So
right,
it's definitely one that I wasn't thinking of immediately, but that's a really interesting one to see.
Speaking to the engineering, I mean, look at the workshop we had last semester where we basically had Jennifer Allen come in and she did a whole embedded Python, MicroPython thing, where we had wireless challenges where you had to configure Bluetooth and wireless to capture the flags, where we actually had to do electrical engineering skill set there. So there's stuff where we can involve, electrical engineers in with doing embedded system work and soldering and building boards, and it's just the sky's the limit with this type of event. So again, getting the faculty, the professionals in that are going to have the skill sets to actually build these challenges for the students.
Yeah, speaking to the last hackathon, I think that went over really well, how students were able to see. We kind of brought in some professional that they didn't really know exactly what she was an expert in. And so they had to go to a workshop. They had to learn, they had to see this new technology that they definitely were not exposed to in the classroom, but they got to see how, from a security point of view, it applied to all the other stuff that they were learning. So that was pretty interesting, definitely from an observation point of view. So
it was all relevant to the Internet of Things and security, and it was a very relevant topic.
Well, I guess maybe kind of in wrapping up here, you've been to these events, you've designed them from the ground up. If you could talk to maybe two last points here of what should a team, whether it be a student or an organizer, what should they expect kind of the first time as they start to build some of this stuff? And then any other last pieces of advice or common pitfalls or whatever that you might want to provide in their efforts, I'd be happy to hear those.
So expect that you're going to fail and you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to have a hard time with a lot of stuff, and things are going to be challenging. And some stuff you're going to have to work hard at to get, and some things may come easy, And somebody's always going to be better than you at something that you're trying to work hard at, that you think you're good at, but there's always somebody that's probably better. And don't let that get you down. Strive to use that as a benchmark to become better than them, right? To become a master at your field. As for building teams for faculty, from faculty to other faculty, let your students develop the team organically. Step back and be an advisor to them, but really the team has to be self-motivated. They have to be trying to find challenges for themselves. They have to be trying to solve problems for themselves. And building that club and building a leadership for that club that evolves and is handed down each semester that people graduate out. If you're the one who's actually driving the whole club and the students aren't the ones that are owning that club, then it really isn't going to succeed. So what I personally do is I let the club develop, build their leadership, go forward and do what they're going to do, and have the leadership come to me for advice and advisement and guidance. So that's the way that I've seen successful clubs grow. And yes, you try to provide them as much resources as possible to get them what they need to get their, get whatever they want to learn, to do hands-on learning, servers, switches, whatever they need to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I definitely to back that up, that was a main piece of advice that's been offered to everyone who I've talked to who's kind of run and built the club from the ground up, was simply do not turn it into a classroom. It's not a classroom where I'm standing in the front doing all the talking and the students are listening, taking notes eagerly with smiles on their face. Like, that's not going to happen. You need to really have that kind of grassroots, let the students build it. So it's really interesting to hear you say that as well.
Yeah, they get enough of that in the classroom already, right? They want something different outside the classroom. They want to be farting around. They want to have fun. They want to do stuff and build things, and that's really what you got to let them do. Yeah. And just as the advisor, give them all the resources possible to do that you can. Fight for your club and get them what they need, but make them do the heavy work of doing the club stuff.
Well, Ronny, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's pretty interesting to kind of get this going forward, and certainly look to seeing your inputs here for the regional hackathons.
All right. Well, thank you, James.
All right. Thanks.